What I'm going to share with you in this video are 5 advanced level tips for new clothing brands that most new clothing brands would just never think of. And these are extremely underrated. So they'll give you the advantage over other brands that are starting up that just never would consider these to be as effective as they are. It's going to change the course of the direction of your clothing brand's life. So here it is. Apparel Success is sponsored by my buds over at BrandCrowd. BrandCrowd's a logo maker tool. You type in the name of the logo that you want to have made, hit enter, thousands of logos will come up. You choose the logo that you like, then you can edit and refine that logo as long as you want for free until it's perfect. This is a hundo P design I made for my own clothing brand using BrandCrowd. If you're interested, head over to brandcrowd.com/apparel success and you can get up to 66% off at checkout. All right, the first advanced tip that I have for you when it comes to starting up a clothing brand is to focus on innovation rather than just launching a brand. I can't explain to you how important this is for your brand. What most clothing brands do is they go, oh, I've got this great name for a brand. I've got this great idea for a brand. I'm just going to launch. Cool, I think it's going to crush. And it's like, well, why is it going to crush? And they go, just because I'm making it and I just think that it has like a chance to like get out there. And it's like, well, what are you doing specifically with your brand that's like really different or innovative? And it's like, well, it's got a great name. And it's like, that's just not enough. So if you focus when you're starting up your brand on specifically what is innovative about your brand, what is new and cutting edge and different, and how can you just shape your entire brand around that alone, just the innovation alone that your brand is making and doing in the world, that's going to be insanely helpful for you when it comes to getting results. And maybe the innovation that you're doing with your brand isn't in the products themselves, but maybe it's in some sort of marketing strategy that you have. Like it's a really innovative marketing strategy and that's going to be your thing. Whatever it is, just make sure that when you're launching your brand, you focus on the innovation because that is what's going to be the soul of your brand moving forward and the thing that's going to drive your success. If you don't have any innovation with your brand, you're just not going to be able to succeed. It just won't work because you need to have a competitive advantage. You need to have something about your brand that's going to get you there. The second advanced level tip that I want to share with you is to identify an untapped niche. Niche? I don't know how to pronounce it or call it, but you need to identify an untapped niche. Identifying an untapped niche is key because it'll give your brand automatically a unique identity. This is what we did for our clothing brand. When we first started up our clothing brand, K-Bud Apparel, there was an untapped niche in the Canadian market for the rural Canada crowd. There was never a brand that was created specifically for rural Canadians that spoke with the slang that they do, that talked the way that they do, that said the things that they say, that do the things that they do. There was just no brand specifically for those people. And that was a huge reason why our brand was able to succeed while other generic Canadian clothing brands just didn't really have an identity and they never really connected with their audience. So by identifying an untapped niche, you're able to build a unique brand that stands out from the other brands and it's able to connect with an audience that just hasn't really been given anything like this before in the clothing space. And this will give you an insane emotional connection with your audience and allow you to sell a lot easier. Ideally, you can find an audience that would just suit a clothing brand really well, and it's almost been starving for a clothing line, and then you can create that clothing line for them and be the first to do it. And that's just an incredible tip when it comes to launching a brand and building a brand from scratch. The third advanced tip for your clothing line has to do with your social media marketing. Anytime a clothing brand starts up, you usually start up on social media and you usually post a lot of content. And what can sometimes happen is you don't get a lot of views. And the natural tendency here is to blame the lack of views on the algorithm. The truth is that it's not the algorithm, it's your content. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all these platforms are built for shareable content that's getting shared, content that's getting viewed a lot, where people are watching it to the end. So being willing to look at the results that you're getting on social media and say, okay, this isn't the algorithm that's stunting our views. It's just simply that my content isn't good enough. How can I improve the content? How can I create content that's shareable, that people want to share with their friends, that's really different, that's really unique, that's holding attention, that's offering a lot of value, like real value? Even if you're trying to offer value, a lot of times it doesn't land. So you have to view social media in that way. This is an advanced tip because so few people are able to actually just process that lesson, because we want to think that there's other things to blame. There's other, like, it's TikTok that's holding us back. It's Instagram. It's YouTube. It's not. It's the quality of our content that matters most. And if your results aren't good enough, it's only you as the entrepreneur. It's only you to blame. The fourth advanced level tip for starting a successful clothing brand in 2023 is that you need to have a unique story or brand identity, and that it's not just about the products that you're selling. Like, your brand and the story that you create around your brand and the identity that you build around your brand, you could say, is equally as important as the products that you're creating. There's a lot of people who pop up on TikTok and they just post hoodies all the time. That's all that they do, is they just post their hoodies, and they just don't get anywhere with it because people don't really have anything to sink their teeth into with the actual brand itself. So creating a brand that actually has a full identity where people like really get involved with it is just as important as creating great products. When it comes to the Canadian market and what I did with my clothing brand in the Canadian space, I believe that this is one of my strengths with my brand. I didn't focus only on creating products and posting products over and over again on social media. I was making funny content, making cool content outdoors, posting pictures of customers out in the outdoors in rural Canada, in the areas where my target audience lives, so that they can connect with it, so that they can actually see the brand story involved. We put a lot of effort into getting onto specific micro influencers and celebrities within Canada that would really appeal to our audience to really build that brand story. And we even worked that into our brand story on our website, like how specific people in Canada started wearing our brand and how it all grew. And we built this whole brand story, rather than it just being like, oh, here's a hoodie and we just stamped a logo on it and that's basically all that we're doing and we're just trying to take your money. It wasn't like that at all. Instead, build a brand identity and build a brand story just as much as you're building your products. And the fifth advanced level tip for clothing brands when they're getting started is that micro influencers are much easier to onboard in the beginning when you're first starting up, without any connections, without any resources, than big influencers. So I recommend that when you're first starting up your clothing brand, you go after 12 to 24 micro influencers rather than one big influencer like Drake or Justin Bieber, who's going to be much harder to land. And having 12 or 24 micro influencers that have like a couple 100,000 followers online, you know, they've got like a following, your audience would know who they are, and getting 12 or 24 of those has a pretty huge impact, arguably bigger than the impact of one big influencer. And having all of those influencers support your brand is going to be a lot easier to actually achieve for you and to actually receive than trying to go after that one big one. That's really the approach that we took for our clothing brand when we first started. We got into a couple dozen micro influencers in our space, and they actually turned out to become much bigger than just micro influencers as time went on as well. So another even more nuanced tip inside of this is that if you can find an influencer that you believe in that is on a really good trajectory, then sponsor them when they're first getting started. Sponsor them when they're only at like 30,000, 40,000 followers. And you never know, in 2 or 3 years, they could be millions and they could be really big. We got our clothing brand worn by 4 or 5 of the cast members of the hit series Letterkenny that was basically just a YouTube channel when they first started. And that's when we got worn by them. Then, like 2 or 3 years later, they got picked up and signed, and the show got turned into a show that was basically as big as Trailer Park Boys. So they all became these like huge celebrities, and we had pictures of 5 of them wearing our clothing back when they were first just getting started. So that's a great advanced level tip for anybody starting up a clothing brand as well. I've recorded a 100% free clothing brand course for anybody starting up a clothing brand right now. All you have to do to get access is go to freeclothingcourse.com and go through it at your own pace. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.